What's up everyone, this is OJ. Today I'll be talking about what me and Ash believe to be one of the strongest cards in the game. I feel like this is like giant poison, except it's not in every single deck because it contains a legendary. I'm able to consistently score 10 to 12 wins with graveyard decks. It's just insane. Here's my personal deck. It's a variant of Colton and Electrify's deck. We made these decks around the same time. When I saw Colton's deck, I felt that the Ice Golem wasn't for me. And when I tried Electrify's deck, the skeletons were insanely high skill. I only reached 5 wins with his skeleton variant. Why is it good? A level 1 graveyard does about 2000 damage to a level 9 tower as it does to a level 13 tower. Since the tower's one-shot skeletons at tournament standard, the level 13 tower isn't more powerful against it. I recommend watching my graveyard video to have a deeper understanding of its mechanics. To summarize the graveyard video, the spell spawns skeletons at a rate of 0.5 seconds. A tower kills a skeleton once per second, so the tower can't keep up. Any sort of unit, even a Mega Minion tanking, can help the skeletons accumulate on the tower. For every arrow, the tower shoots at the Mega Minion. That's every skeleton that isn't going to die. Imagine if you couldn't counter the skeleton army with Zap, it would just destroy the tower really fast. Let's break down the deck usage into individual cards. Since this video is about an entire deck, I won't be going into too much detail about every single interaction of each card. You can use the Fireball anytime you can kill 4 elixir or more. Basically, you can use Fireball when you hit a medium-sized unit and clip their tower for some chip damage. This is a huge win condition. Always use it with a graveyard to take out archers, minions, minion horde, or even barbarians. If you recognize a pattern where they always counter your graveyard with barbarians, you can use this to your advantage. This is the first time I'll precast the Fireball. This gamble can ensure your graveyard does thousands of damage to the tower, and they're now down barbarians. If you want to use something else other than Fireball, Freeze is really fun to use. It's good to freeze any graveyard counters like archers or minions. This can potentially deal more damage than a Fireball, since it also shuts down the tower from killing skeletons. The drawback is that you now have to worry about a huge counterattack and you're down 4 elixir. Be sure to be at an elixir advantage when using this spell, or when you have counters to units you froze. In my deck, I usually only use Inferno against giants, golems, or bowlers. If there's a giant bowler, I'll do a 4-2 plant. It's usually not that easy though, they always have a zap, and that's why I always have a Mega Minion to take out the bowler. The Inferno Tower is critical in this deck because it allows you to pressure the other lane for negative elixir trades. When I see a golem, I'll go all out and pressure the other lane with graveyard because I'm confident by the time the golem reaches my side of the map, I can just do a 4-3 plant for a positive elixir trade. Lane pressure and elixir management is extremely important. By pressuring them, you're denying them the privilege of being able to support units behind that golem. The bowler plays a big role in this deck. He denies skeleton army, furnace, archers, hogs, essentially all of the small ground units. Then he translates into a counterattack, and it doesn't matter if they have buildings to counter him. For every arrow he's tanking, a new skeleton isn't being killed by that arena tower. If I can afford damage in my arena tower, I'll always use the bowler to counter a hog. It does cost 1 elixir more than the hog, and the hog does manage to hit the tower once, but this translates into a deadly counterattack. I'll have enough for graveyard plus Fireball once he reaches the other side. He's also great at defending against the popular Ice Golem Hog combo. Paired with a Mega Minion, Archers, or Ice Spirit, it can prevent a lot of damage from being done to the tower, which also translates into a counterattack. An Ice Spirit is particularly good. It does cost 2 extra elixir to completely shut down a hog, but that's an investment for a counterattack. Big purple guy with almost 2000 health tanking for your graveyard is a common win condition in this deck. When defending against splash units like a wizard or even your enemy's bowler, you never want to plant him directly in front of the tower. It'll just clip the tower with all of that unnecessary damage. The tombstone can substitute the Inferno Tower. It's not an absolute tank killer, but it can pull them. It plays kind of different than the Inferno Tower, because you can plant it on the map to bank elixir. In that sense, it's also kind of an offensive building where it helps your graveyard accumulate skeletons when they're attacking. This is the most important card in the deck for me. It straight up counters Mega Minion, which is very common to see, like when they counter your bowler with a single Mega Minion. It can counter a lot of other cards too. Single interactions, it stops cards like Spear Goblins, Archers, or Ice Wizard, all for a positive elixir trade. It can stop a Prince charge, which is extremely important to protect your Inferno Tower. In larger battles, if I see a Giant and Prince, you can do a 4-3 plant. This distance only pulls the Giant, it does not pull the Prince. Then I'll use the Ice Spirit to pull the Prince and draw him into the Inferno Tower, plus freeze him, stopping his charge attack and stopping that giant in his tracks. It's all about how you use the Ice Spirit. If you pre-plant an Ice Spirit, it won't clip all 6 minions. The most important part is planting it close enough that the first minion hits the Ice Spirit, so it clumps them all up. He'll live long enough to splash onto all 6 of them for a huge positive elixir trade, and if they have a miner, you can just zap the horde. In terms of offensive uses, this guy can tank 2 shots from a tower and freeze the tower for 1.5 seconds. The graveyard has a slow load time, so it spawns its first skeleton 1.5 seconds after casting. So the perfect timing is to plant the Ice Spirit, immediately followed by casting that graveyard spell on their tower. If you plant the graveyard, then the Ice Spirit, the tower won't hit it twice. That's 2 skeletons that didn't accumulate. This is a great combo if you know they have 0 counters to your graveyard in their hand. Like when I see them use their only counter to graveyard, in this case, archers. It's also particularly effective when they plant a building in the front. This is when they're down on elixir. If you push the opposite lane, the Ice Spirit will slip past the building. Despite the spawn nerf the Tombstone recently had, a well-timed and well-placed Tombstone can still counter a Furnace very effectively. The Furnace deals over 1,000 damage to a tower if it's left ignored. It's a struggle playing against it. You should never let Fire Spirits travel to your tower. Basically, one Fire Spirit packs the punch of a fireball on an arena tower. Bowlers are perfect against spawners, even if he doesn't reach the tower. His tanking capabilities are really good for graveyard, but when you don't have a bowler, or you can't afford to use him, an Ice Spirit can deny 2 waves. You want to time it so that the first Fire Spirit dies to the tower, then swerve that second Fire Spirit onto your Ice Spirit to tank it. Then it'll jump onto the next wave that spawns. Each wave is worth 1.5 elixir, so this is a good positive elixir trade. If you want to change it up a bit, the Ice Golem is a bit easier to use. He offers similar defensive capabilities as an Ice Spirit, but it's usually more guaranteed defense. It's not as finicky where you need to worry about the exact tile placement or timing like an Ice Spirit does. Plus he can kill a skeleton army when he dies. It just offers so much value for 2 elixir. Basically it can kite most units or tank tiny pushes. It's like an impenetrable wall. The reason why an Ice Golem is better than a miner in a graveyard deck is because he doesn't need to reach the tower to attack it. He just needs to be in range of the tower. Skeletons accumulate really fast when he's tanking. Archers function very similar to the Ice Spirit in that they can defend against most cards, and the twins can't be zapped, arrowed, or logged. You have to fireball them. Usually when I start off the match, I like to split the archers. This lets you attack or defend either side. Paired with an Ice Spirit, a single archer can deal just under 500 damage to the tower. If your opponent is running a high cost deck, there's no way they're defending both single archers. Splitting them in the center prevents both archers from getting splashed by units like a baby dragon or a Valkyrie. Archers paired with a graveyard can be very deadly too. If the archer tanks for the skeletons, more skeletons will spawn. If the skeletons tank for the archers, a single archer could be sniping the tower for the entire duration of the graveyard. One thing to note about splitting cards is that once a tower is down, the pathing behaves differently. They won't split around the back end. This is the area you have to plant them in if you want them to split. Any of these tiles will work in splitting the archers. With the recent balance changes, the Mega Minion still functions the same. It can counter most units like a Bowler or Valkyrie, and it still one-shots archers. This card is mostly for defense and rarely pairs with the graveyard, unless you can manage to build up for a really huge counter attack. This card takes care of all the small units like goblins, minions, skeletons, or even the skeleton army. It's fairly reasonable to use this to stun an Inferno Tower to allow your bowler to get a few extra shots in, or even to force the Inferno Tower to retarget onto skeletons and save the bowler. When paired with an Ice Golem or Ice Spirit, it can completely take out minions for 3 elixir. It can shut down the popular Miner Minion Horde combo. Most importantly, a popular counter to graveyard is Skeleton Army. This card counters their Skeleton Army when they try to defend your graveyard. If you aim it just right, you can take out all of the skeletons for a positive elixir trade. As an added bonus, it chips the tower and stuns it. This type of deck works great in challenges and tournaments. Archers die to Mega Minion with 1 hit at tournament standard. This is also a deck that works really well on ladder simply because the level 1 graveyard deals roughly 2,000 damage to an arena tower regardless of the level. Once the King's Tower is activated, most players find it hard to get graveyard to perform effectively, but it's quite the opposite. A bowler with 1700 health can be planted right in the center to tank both arena and King Tower while the graveyard does work. There are way too many interactions to cover in this video, and I'm not able to cover every single one. Otherwise, this video would have been really long on how to use just one deck. But overall, the basis of this type of deck is that it can counter almost anything and translates into a counterattack. Or it can push anytime. Sometimes it only makes sense to play Graveyard when their archers are out of rotation or played in the other lane. Sometimes, a prediction firewall is the only way you can win the game. Sometimes they can perfectly counter your Graveyard and you end up defending the entire game while using Fireball to kill them out slowly. The Graveyard is a really fun card to play, but also very dangerous to play against. When building a deck, you should always have a Graveyard counter like archers or minions at the very least. Thanks for watching, stay tuned for more quality OJ. If you want to learn more about this type of deck, check out Colton's video. There's a link in the description below. He takes a different approach on teaching how to use this deck and has valuable insight as well.